David, can we, I hope you have the presentation for today. We can just test it once, please.
Yes, I do have it. So let me quickly share. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Works. Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. I hope you guys are doing well, that you're enjoying the course. And please make sure you've caught up on any of the recordings. We have posted it on the website and we will share it in the chat as well. So please do make sure that you go back in case you miss something. And of course, please engage all the materials that we've got there for you, including the activities. There's quite a number of activities. I see the journal entries are quite nice and busy and full. Lots of nice, interesting insights coming through that. So please, guys, continue, do those activities. It's definitely going to be worthwhile. For this session this evening, again, Keshaf is going to be continuing from where we left off from last week. So hopefully you guys are all with us, and I'm going to hand over to Keshaf now. Over to you, Keshaf.
Thank you, David, and thank you for really all the work that you and the team is putting in to make these sessions happen. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in again. And once again, can't wait to get started in today's session. Would love to hear some of your reflections. I would love to read them on the chat. So, in case you want to share some things on the chat, again, as you know, that I try to read everything that comes our way on the chat. So, please do utilize that for talking to us. And once again, I request everyone to actively engage with us, ask any questions, post your thoughts in the chat. So that's the starting piece. Last time when we had met, we had discussed quite a lot about how the United Nations operates, and we had started understanding the basics of Model UN. Today, we will have two things. If we can go to the next slide, please. Uh, Rules of procedure and the debate. So these are the two themes that we will be focusing on today. One is we will be introducing you all to the general rules of procedure that are used in an MUN, in a Model UN conference, and the way the debate flows, what happens, how the dialogue takes place. The most interesting thing about what we will do today is that these parliamentary procedures are pretty much the same procedures in at the United Nations. They are very similar procedures in many parliaments across the world, and they will give you a general sense of how rules of procedures work in any legislative body. Uh, and if you want to apply these at any MUN in any part of the world, this is what is the standard practice mostly. The other part is the debate itself. So we will be understanding that once we adopt a formal agenda, case in point, climate change, how does this debate get initiated? How is it organized? How do people speak? What kind of phrases can we utilize? And then how does this debate from very diverging views of different countries, how does it come together towards a common platform? So these are the two things that our focus will be towards. We can please go to the next slide. Okay. A kind reminder to everyone, like we did last time. These are some of the expectations that we have. So being present means being attentive and with us here and now, being intentional. So understanding what we are doing with 100% intention. Again, like we will be sharing so many different opinions, and people will be putting some things on the chat. So being respectful to each other, just reflecting, being reflective. So again, like really taking these learnings and thinking through them, being aspirational. So being forward looking around it and utilizing these learnings for the future, being active. And again, like some of the sections that we will be discussing today might be a little dry because they are procedure related, but your being engaged and active will again change the whole learning experience for you. uh, Being happy, authentic, and accepting. I think we've understood those values. So I think with a show of some reactions, it'll be great to see that you're following, and we can do that. Okay, I see the reactions coming. So thank you so much. You see that the reactions have just made me smile more. So thank you once again for your response and your attention. Let's move ahead, please. Okay, so let's get into this debate and dialogue. Okay, so the first thing is that I'd love to know from you, and if you can just put one word that comes to your mind when you hear the word debate or dialogue. Would love to hear from you, like if you can just put one word that comes to your mind when you hear this word debate or dialogue. Anyone? We'll give it like 5 seconds. You can just put your responses in the chat, please. Okay, position, amazing. Issues, arguments, opinion, very nice. These are all conversation, communication, okay. Argument, okay. Information, facts, discussing on controversial topic, views. I love how unique everyone's responses are. So that this is amazing. Common grounds, okay. Sharing of ideas, very nice. I think this is pretty much what a debate and a dialogue in Model UN is all about. It is about sharing information. It is about sharing opinions of different countries. It is about the arguments and perspectives we have towards the policies that are being done. Um, and it is about conveying our commonalities as well as disagreements, our thoughts. So I think this is a perfect segue into what we are discussing. So debate that way, yes, that is what exactly it means. It means trying to come from different spaces to try to understand each other, and if we even if we disagree with each other, to disagree through a proper reasoning, rather than just uh, any arbitrary things. So very well done, everyone. Thank you for your responses. Um, the debate and dialogue in context of MUN is also, as I've said in the slide, a journey where delegates uh, move from setting the agenda, that is, to adopt a particular topic, to finally arriving at the solutions. And that in itself is a very very difficult issue, as we have seen. So that is what debate and dialogue in context of MUN is. Can we please move forward? Okay. So as you see this slide, this is a very interesting slide. If you see the column one, it says stage of committee proceedings. So and then the next column is what we call as processes, and the last one is aspects. So the first stage of committee proceedings is the commencement stage. So that means that you have been allocated a particular country, you have been allocated a particular committee, you have been given a particular topic or an agenda, and now you have finally arrived at the MUN. It could be virtual, it could be in person, and we all settle down in our respective places. So the first thing that happens is the roll call. So a roll call means like an attendance, where we ask everyone who's present, who's not there, and this is to take a stock of who is in the discussion, so that when we are referring to anything, we know who is our audience really, and that is a very important part. So that is our first kind of a stage, which is the roll call. The second stage is this what we call as the second setting the agenda. Setting the agenda basically means that we are formally adopting a particular topic. Uh, Even though in an MUN, an agenda is pre assigned to you like a month in advance, still, when all the delegates do arrive, they all officially adopt the agenda before they go ahead. So these two things are essentially what we call as a commencement of a committee proceedings, and that is the very first stage. It takes like maybe 5 minutes or so of the initial committee time. We will go into how this happens after that. First, we're just trying to get an overview of this whole process. The second stage is what we call as debate and deliberation. uh, Today, our focus will be mostly on this debate and deliberation aspect. We will be doing the other things like resolution process and conclusion and all later on in another session. But today, we will be primarily sticking to debate and deliberation. This debate and deliberation in an MUN takes place through what we call as a formal debate and an informal debate. Uh, this is a very important part that we will discuss today. The formal debate takes place through what we call as a general speakers list. And I understand these words are very unfamiliar to you right now. So don't worry about it. This is exactly what we are learning today. The second part is the informal debate. And this happens through what we call as a caucus. And again, we will be discussing in some time what this caucus is all about. Moderated caucus, unmoderated caucus. So by the time we conclude today's session, these terms will be super familiar to all of you. So don't worry about them. So the idea is that the debate starts through this roll call setting the agenda, and then the debate and deliberations take place. From those debates and deliberations, we arrive at certain solutions. These solutions get documented and then put to vote and discussion through what we call as the resolution process, largely speaking, that you see on column 1 in the third row. So that is what we call as resolution process. And then we come to the conclusion section of the meeting. So this is all of you, the larger process in which the MUN moves: the start, the debate and deliberation phase, the resolution phase, and the conclusion of the committee. So, this is the overview. Now, we will be going into these processes one by one. I would just like to remind you once again that today we will only be focusing more till the debate and deliberation section, and then later on we will go to the resolution section. Uh, just a note to all of you, our colleague Richard has just posted the link to the to the MOOC, which has all the fundamental texts, foundational text we are using, and the link to the previous webinar recordings. So please do feel free to see that link in the chat whenever. Can we please move to the next slide? Okay, now roll call. This is the first thing that happens in an MUN. You have to be, again, this is very important. Sometimes we just think that it's a roll call, so why should we care? So the first thing is that what happens is everyone is seated and you have your countries assigned. The chairperson, the executive board, will first call out every country's name in an alphabetical order, and then they will ask you to give your roll call. Now, what you say is either present or present and voting. So, for instance, in an MUN, we all sit down. Imagine you're all delegates, and I'm the chairperson. So I will say, dear delegates, welcome to this proceedings of the General Assembly. We will now be commencing our committee proceedings, and we will start with the roll call. All the delegates who are present in the committee kindly attend to your roll call. You may answer your roll call in present or present and voting. And we will start with A. So Afghanistan, Argentina, Brazil, Bhutan, China, Canada, and so on and so forth in an alphabetical order. Every country which is present in the committee, their name is called out. Now, you can, as it says, address your roll call in present or present and voting. So I just want to quickly tell you what this means. Uh, So please remember that when we say the word present, it signifies that you are present in the committee. And what it doesn't say, but it implicitly means that I am present in the committee, but I may not vote in the committee. So I've just put that statement for us in the chat quickly, that I am present, but I may not vote in the committee on the final decision. That is what present really means. Present in voting means that I am present in the committee and I will definitely be voting in the committee. Okay? So this is what the two words signify when we say present and voting. But the interesting thing is, why do we have these two things? And I can tell you that these are utilized, these present and voting system is present in every MUN and many actual legislative meetings as well. Great question. Thank you. If you only say present and decide to vote later, will you be still allowed to? Yes. So when you say the word present, you can say yes, no, or A meaning abstain from voting. When you say present and voting, you can only answer in the final resolution a yes or a no. So I have just put that, thank you for your question. I've put those scenarios in the chat for you all. Uh, Now, I just want to quickly tell you all why this is there. And I want to give you some very quick examples. Uh, let us say that if there is a agenda. I'll take this question as well in the chat. Can present also mean that you do not want to state your position? Uh, Present basically means that you want to state your position, but you may not want to give a final vote on that matter, particularly. And I am just telling you maybe some scenarios in which that can be there. Uh, that scenario one can be that you are not clear on what kind of a conclusion will come in the meeting. So sometimes you know that some really controversial issue is being discussed, and either way you don't want to vote. So that is one scenario where there is lack of clarity. So by saying yes or a no, both ways, it doesn't make sense for a country. Another case is when the agenda is in a way that that both, like, there's a dispute between two countries, and you as a third country are friendly with both the countries, and if you vote on either sides, your friendship or your relationship with that particular country may get affected. So that is why you may choose to remain neutral on the issue. That is another way of looking at it. The third and a very peculiar issue that you can see happens in the United Nations Security Council. I'm just putting that in the chat as well for you all. In the United Nations Security Council, especially with the permanent five members, what we call as the P5 members. With these permanent five members, the voting happens in a particular way in which, if they decide to say no to a particular suggestion, even if we have a single no on that particular suggestion, this is called a veto, that that solution is rejected immediately, no matter whatever the majority numbers are. So, if there is a certain situation in which you don't want to veto a solution, but you are not in favor of it either, your country wants to reserve a right to abstain. And when you want that right, when you want to have that option later on to abstain, you want to reserve that through a roll call vote of present only. Uh, okay. Uh, okay, that's a very important question. Why is that? What's so special about those countries that they can veto? Because they were the founding members of the UN. They were the most powerful countries when the UN was formulated, and they were the winners of the World War II. So they framed the rules in such a way that they all got that veto power. And the veto power countries, uh, I've just put them in the chat as well. These are the 5 countries that have that veto power in the Security Council. And I can share an example with you as to an example where one country abstained rather than vetoing, and that was when the UN decided to intervene in Libya to end the regime of Muammar Gaddafi. At that point, Russia was a very strong ally of Libya, but because Russia was under a lot of pressure from the Western countries, Russia decided to abstain from the voting on that matter, and instead of voting in favor of Libya and against the resolutions, Russia just abstained, and then UN could adopt a resolution in the Security Council. So that is one key example. Can you please give me a thumbs up if you've understood this point about present and present in voting? Okay, thank you so much. And I hope that we are not going very fast. Okay, all right. So I hope that this roll call is clear. You have to just simply say present or present and voting. In virtual MUNs, many times you will have to write your roll call on chat rather than um, sound it through speaking. Okay, so uh, okay. What I will do is I will cover a few more things and then we can come back on some of the sections. You just make sure you put them in the chat, the sections you are not understanding, and we can repeat them. Can we please go to the next slide? Right, agenda. So as I said that once the roll call is done, the chairperson will announce the number of people who are present in the committee, and they will also tell us that for any particular decision to be made, how many votes do we need in favor and how many we need in against. So let us take an example that the committee in an MUN simulation is UN General Assembly, and the number of people who are present in the committee are 50. So if those 50 people are present in the committee, then to calculate the basic majority number, the formula is always 50% plus 1. Please remember 50% plus 1 is not 51%, it is 50% plus 1. Can you please put it in the chat? What will be the majority number if we have 50 members in the committee and 50% plus 1 is the number required? Anyone who can try to put it in the chat, your response. 26. Perfect. Thank you so much. That's the perfect response. Very nice. Let's take one more example. What if there are 51 people in the committee? Now, how many will be there? Chairperson does not have a vote. Please remember, chairperson does not have a vote in all of these situations. Uh, okay. So here I want you to help just understand that whenever we have the even number like a 50, the math is very straightforward. Here what happens is when we take, yeah, I love it. So thank you so much for those who responded 27. Let's do a quick math. I know you weren't expecting a math lesson here in a Model UN workshop, but 50 51 by 2 is 25.5, which you have to round off to 26, and then you have to add 1 to it. So it will be 27 people. So whoever got 27, you're absolutely correct. Uh, yes, so that is the only math we will be doing in the entire course. So, uh, all right. So then for what happens when there is a tie? Beautiful question. So let us say we have 50 people and we have 24 yes and 25 yes and 25 no. Will a decision pass or fail? Just write P or F for your like anyone in this scenario. if we have 25 votes in favor and 25 against, what will happen? Fail. Very nice. Because you need at least a 25, 26. So great. Not pass. It will fail because you need 26 and we have 25 votes in favor. So very nice. One question that is in the chat is what happens if a P5 member votes and another P5 votes against? It will still fail because uh, and this is please remember once again that this is all the veto is only in the United Nations Security Council. It's not in any other committee. So in that case, all you need is one negative vote. So it doesn't matter how many positive votes you have, one negative is enough to fail a resolution. So like everything will fail at that point. Okay, so I think we are all like understanding very well. So thank you everyone. This is perfect. Like all of you are getting it absolutely very well. So now let us move forward. Let us move ahead. So no, can we please? Sorry, my apologies. Can we go to the next previous slide? Yes. So after the roll call is done and this majority number is announced, the chairperson will say, delegates, now let us adopt the official agenda. And that this is at this point, the committee officially takes on the particular topic. Okay. So that is the adoption of agenda and the formal procedure we will understand in some more time. Okay. Please, next slide, please. Okay. Now, everyone, this is where now the real business commences. So please be very attentive here. Now, the moment the agenda is adopted, the first thing that happens in an MUN is that we start something called as a formal debate. And a formal debate takes place through what we call as a speakers list. So this speakers list is basically how the whole MUN progresses. In this speakers list, you have to speak for 90 seconds. That is 1.5 minutes. And in this speakers list, you can make any point about the agenda and your country's position here. Now, please remember that whenever you are addressing anybody when you are addressing the committee, you have to refer to yourself as the delegate of, say, South Africa or the representative of South Africa. Not I, the delegate of South Africa. What that means is that the MUN language, when you're using, you have to say that if I were the delegate of South Africa, I would say that the delegate of South Africa would like to thank the executive board for this opportunity. The delegate believes that we are living in a times of a climate crisis where global warming is at its highest peak and we are seeing the impact of climate change across the world. The delegate of South Africa would like to convey to all of you that urgent action is needed and so on and so forth. So the language you have to use is by referring yourself to the delegate of South Africa, not myself or I. I hope that you have understood that clearly. And whenever you are referring to other delegates or the chairpersons, please remember that you are calling them as referring to themselves as honorable delegates or honorable chairperson. So you have to add this word honorable. It's a and I'm sure if you see the parliament debates as well, we always say honorable members. So please remember that that is a respect that we are communicating. Uh, okay. Hi Mabel. There is sound. If David, if you could please just write in the chat. Okay, thank you. So please remember that whenever you have to speak in the formal debate in the speakers list, that happens through you have to speak for 90 seconds. And here you have to refer to yourself as the delegate and you will be making those speeches. Uh, okay, can we please move ahead? Yeah. So now this speakers list is basically it carries on. It starts on the one on day one, and it carries on and it goes on till the end of the MUN. And it looks, uh, yeah, okay. So one question as somebody has asked is, so you only have 90 seconds to present. So most MUNs, it is 90 seconds. Um, and sometimes it can be 120 seconds also. But mostly it is 1.5 to 2 minutes only. So you have to really prioritize your points. Please do remember that. Now, once this is done, let's go forward with the speakers from the speakers list. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is how a speakers list looks like generally. That every so what happens is that the chairperson will ask you delegates who want to be placed on the speakers list, please give your names. So you submit your names to the chairperson, and then they will display a list like that. So India will speak for 90 seconds, then USA will speak, and then Brazil will speak, then South Africa will speak. And once you have spoken in the speakers list, your name is struck off the list, and you can give a request to be added again to that list. So you can speak multiple times on this list. Please do remember that because the speakers list is going on from day one till the end of the day, the content you're using to deliver your speeches can change significantly depending on the timing of your speeches. Great question. No, it doesn't need to be alphabetical at all. You have to give your name, and the chairperson basically determines which person is placed where in the speakers list. So no alphabetical. Uh, so yeah, that's there. So now, as I said, that the speakers list carries on, and the what content you're using. Let me take an example, especially with climate change. So let us say that you are India, and you're the first speaker, or you're the first five speakers. So a lot of speakers who are at the beginning of the speakers list, they tend to talk about the causes of climate change. They will talk about the problem of climate change, who is affected by the climate change, and so on. So because they're trying to really analyze the problem. But if you are a speaker, and imagine that uh, if you are a speaker um, who is speaking on the second day, and the debate has moved forward from understanding the problem to moving forward towards the solutions. So you have to make sure that your speech in a speakers list is dynamic, that you are talking uh, about the issues which are already being discussed in the committee, and not just the speech that you had previously written. Because if the committee's debate has already moved forward from discussing the causes of the problem to the actual implementation of solutions, so your speakers list cannot be about the causes of the problem because it has been stated by many people many times. So please remember that your speakers list has to be dynamic. Okay. How many countries are there in the UN? 193. But please remember that many MUN committees will have less people also. Uh, it can even have 60 people, 50 people, 40 people. The United Nations Security Council only has 15 members. So different committees have different, committee strengths. If you are doing a UN Economic and Social Council, it only has 54 members. So while 193 members are there in the UN, your committee sizes can really vary according to how that committee is organized in the MUN. Okay. So now Sia has raised a very good point about what do you speak in the speakers list. Okay. So please remember some of the things that you should be ideally speaking about in the speakers list are the following. First is that you try to define the key terms. So if I'm saying climate change, does it mean that it was uh, does it mean that climate change means that yesterday it was hot and today it is cold? No. Climate change has a very specific scientific meaning. technical meaning, and that meaning has to be clarified to the committee. So, whatever the technical terms, scientific terms, legal terms are, you first need to have a very basic clarity, and that will help to always define the topic. Uh, okay, yeah. So that is one thing. I will take these questions once I've finished talking about the content of speakers list. I will take both these questions. So thank you for your questions in the chat. The second thing after you have done that, you will be talking about how your country and the world at large is affected by that problem. So, how, if I am Nigeria, then how is my country affected by climate change? Is it my agriculture which is affected? Is it like the rain patterns which have gone bad? What is it that is actually the problem in my country, and how are people being affected by that? And where all is the impact of the world? So in climate change, as you understand that the impact of climate change is felt throughout the world, but in some cases it is felt more, or some cases it is more severe, so you can really talk about those kind of issues. Then what you do is you try to then talk about what is the actions that your country has taken. So what is it that you have taken? Like, so you will say we have enacted so and so laws. We are trying to, we are trying to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. We are trying to give incentives to countries which are incentives to businesses which are doing that. We are promoting this recycle, reuse, refuse things. We are trying to do circular economy and so on. So whatever initiatives you have undertaken. You will also highlight and outline your efforts in the international and global space. So maybe you have collaborations with different countries on this issue. Maybe you have signed the Paris Agreement and you have signed the Kyoto Protocol. So you will basically say that, okay, these are the things that we have done so far. Finally, then you will start talking about what are the key challenges today as you are meeting, and what is it that you can contribute from your side to this whole issue of climate change? And what is it that you need for a more effective strategy towards climate change? Like, for instance, many developing countries, India, South Africa included, are saying that developed countries should really cut down on their carbon emissions more so that developing countries have the space to grow. And so on and so forth. So maybe developed countries have a different opinion. So this is how you are really trying to deliver your remarks in the speakers list. I always recommend to delegates to conclude their speech with something called as a call to action. Call to action means trying to outline and call on the members to do different actions that you want them to do. And this is something that will create leadership for you in a committee. When you end your speeches simply by making some points, you're not providing any proper direction to the debate or the committee. But the moment you issue a good call to action and you say, ladies and gentlemen, or honorable delegates, we believe that urgent action must be taken, and all generations and all countries should do that. With businesses, these are the two things we believe they should do. With governments, this is what they should do. With young people, this is what they should do. With the senior generations, this is what they should do. So it lays out a clear roadmap. Second thing it does is that people who have similar points as you also know that this is your policy, so they are able to approach you and create alliances with you. And that is how really block formations eventually happen. I want to at this point just tell you that it does not matter. Uh, at this point, I just want to remind you, it does not matter that you should represent a USA or a United Kingdom to make a difference in the committee. Whichever country you have, you can create impact and influence in the committee simply with your passion and your points. So whichever country you get in an MUN, that should not decide your active contribution. You should decide your active contribution. And when you start looking at something like a Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement, you will see that countries which may not have very big GDPs, they have played a tremendous role in these negotiations. So I want you all to already start thinking from this perspective that do not create hierarchies between countries in your mind. Whichever country you represent, you should fairly represent all countries that are delivered to you. Now, before I move further, I am just going to quickly take these couple of pointers. One question is that you read that Palestine is recognized as a non-member observer state. What does it mean? What it means is that in the United Nations General Assembly, which is the biggest committee and the one place where all countries come together, Palestine has been recognized as a non-member. Non-member firstly means that there are 193 official members of the UN. Palestine has been asked that Palestine can attend the meetings, but they are not a member of the UN right now. So that is what it means, that there are certain privileges and certain rights that exclusively only member states enjoy. Member states of the UN. So one example is voting on the resolutions. So Palestine does not have that right, yet Palestine has a voice. So that is very important to understand, that Palestine can address the committee, but Palestine cannot sponsor resolutions or Palestine cannot vote on resolutions. So this is what an observer state, which is non-member, that is what it means. Uh, and Palestine, before Palestine, let me correct you and say that it is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, that is PLA, that was given the initial observer status at the UN, because PLA was the democratically elected body in the West Bank. So PLA was the one which had it. Um, yeah. Okay. One another question was, will everyone will have to engage in a topic? Yes. Definitely. The everyone will engage in that one agenda of climate change if that is the agenda. Maybe some other committees discussing human rights. In that case, they will be all engaged with that agenda. What is the process of becoming a member? That's a great question. The process of becoming a member is that A, you have to fulfill all the criterias of a nation. And those criterias um, are that you should have a border, you should have a geographical area, you should have people in that, you should have a culture of your country, and you should have a sovereignty. That means you should have the legal mandate to uh, to take your own decisions. Now you send your application to the UN and you say that we want to be a member. UN's criteria for membership is laid out in the United Nations Charter that we had briefly touched upon in our previous conversation as well. And we had also talked about this membership criteria in our previous session. The criteria is that you should be a peace loving country. That is the basic criteria. Once that happens, your application is comes to the UN. You can then your application will be reviewed, and there will be a voting in the Security Council and the General Assembly to admit you to the United Nations if you are a country. So that is uh, that is the general requirement and process. Are they? Yeah, okay. Great question. Are there certain requirements? Are there any certain requirements? Yes, there are certain requirements, but remember, it is to join the UN. Like, sadly, for instance, a country like Israel joined the UN earlier on, and after that, it is committing all of these issues. If they were already doing that, and then they would have joined, it would have been a very difficult thing for them to join the UN. Has anyone been kicked out of the UN? This is a very interesting question. You know, UN does not give you a lot of like provisions to leave the UN in itself. Like, it is the joining criteria is given, but the exit criteria is not really there. But countries sometimes are suspended. Um, Especially like yeah, they are. But I think please remember that one thing is what we call as the written law, but the other thing is the political realities. So what happens is that because many countries are backing these countries, like you have USA, you have the United Kingdom, and you have so many other European countries are backing Israel. So it's very difficult in the UN to really kick out Israel, even if the UN wanted to. And that works on all sides of this issue. Like there are so many countries which are fighting. So yeah, that is the political reality of the UN. Is is it fair? Absolutely not. I agree with you, but I think that is a very big limitation of the UN. Sadly, that yeah, you have to have basically powerful friends. Yes, that is what the political reality right now in the UN system is. What if a country has no peace but need peace? Can they also join UN? Yes, they can join UN. They can definitely join UN. But again, you need to remember what that statement that if a country has no peace, it can mean anything. Like a country, as we had discussed last time, a country has people, a country has government, a country has like media, a country has terrorists. So which part of it is not peaceful? I think what is important is that to begin with, the government has to be peace seeking. If the government itself is not peace seeking, it becomes very difficult for the UN to admit. Uh, so that is yeah, that is the case. Now, and thank you. Keep these comments coming. I think this is something that will help us really like broaden our thinking and know more. So I highly encourage and appreciate your questions. Let us move and if you can just if you are still following, if you haven't fallen asleep, like if you can just give me a react button and just communicate that you're there with us even now. Thank you. Okay. So how can we strive for more equality in the world? The organization itself is not enforcing equality. Yeah, I agree with you. And this month, in another few days, we have the summit of the future of the UN in New York, where they're really deliberating on the future of the UN. Like how should the future of the UN look like? And it is when you all young leaders will put your voices out there calling for a more equal UN, I think that can make a significant impact. So I actively encourage all of you, to put these ideas forward about a more equal UN for a more equal world. Okay. So I hope that the speakers list bit is clear to you. Let's move to the next slide, please. Informal debate. Okay. Now, what happens through formal debate is that everyone is giving speeches one by one, and then they go back to their like they just settle down in their particular position. So so what happens is that it does not lead to any consensus. Imagine if we are discussing climate change and Canada comes and they talk about polar ice caps and then uh, the impact of that on their country. An island nation, Mauritius, comes and talks about potentially like how island countries are affected. India talks about the Himalayas. So because there are such divergent issues, sometimes it's very difficult to to come to a common consensus because speakers list allows you to speak about any issue that you want to within the agenda. So in order to create consensus, in order to create get everyone on the same sub issues, an informal debate is prescribed in the procedure. Okay. I will just quickly talk about these informal debates and then I will come back to our super interesting chat and I will make a couple of my remarks on the chat. So you can continue to put your opinions there and you can continue this discussion together. But just remember that we have to do that with utmost respect for each other as people, and we have to just respect our opinions with each other. So do continue to share your thoughts. Okay. So this informal debate takes place through what we call as a moderated caucus and an unmoderated caucus. So to begin with, a caucus is a group discussion. Simply, we can say that. A caucus is a group discussion. If we can, if we can please come back to our presentation. And I was saying that a caucus means a group discussion, and this group discussion, yes, thank you so much. Now, this group discussion is on a subtopic. So let us say that, yes, please, next slide, please. Yes. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Uh, so a moderated caucus is a discussion that is taking place on a specific subtopic. So let us take an example that let me ask you a simple question that if you are in the United Nations and you are trying to discuss climate change, actually not even climate change, let's be more specific. If you are talking about global warming, combating, I'm putting this in the chat for all of us, global warming. Imagine if this is our agenda, combating global warming. What will be the main themes or issues that we should be discussing in order to solve this issue? Like, so what are the main sub themes? How can we break this agenda down? Can you please put certain important themes, just one word, two words, that we should address if we have to combat global warming? So do put that in the chat, please. Carbon emissions. Okay. That's a very good answer. Okay. So introduction to gas emissions. Okay. Capitalism. Wonderful. Afforestation. Okay. Great. Okay. So pollution. Very good. So all these responses that all of you are giving. So the committee needs to have a clear direction on each of these issues. For us to have a larger solution to global warming, we need to have a dedicated conversation on each of these issues, right? This is what a moderated caucus is for. Moderated means that it is moderated by the chairperson. So this means that the chairperson will decide who will speak when, which country will speak when, and the thing about that differentiates a caucus, moderated caucus, from a general speakers list, in that in general speakers list, there's a specific order that is created and then everyone starts speaking. In a moderated caucus, you can speak one after the other. So, like, let's say delegate of France speaks, and then the chairperson will say, all those delegates who would like to speak, please give your name. So one by one, this conversation takes place, and you get selected to speak. Okay, so that is what a moderated caucus is, and through every caucus, and this caucus takes place for about 15 to 20 minutes. So please remember that, for instance, the caucus is the speakers list is going on, and then and then many delegates are talking about the sub theme. So the chairperson will say, delegates, let us now discuss afforestation. And then specifically, we will dedicate a 20-minute slot to only discuss afforestation, where people will make comments on afforestation, create some consensus on it, and then they will come back to the speakers list. Then three, four speakers will speak. Then they will go to, let's say, water pollution or consumption and recycling, or any of these important themes that you have outlined. So in a particular one day in an MUN, you have somewhere around 5 to 6 moderated caucuses. So 5 to 6 key issues are discussed, and certain solutions are adopted on each of these solutions. If you have understood how what happens in this caucus, just please just give me a reaction so that I know that we are all following that process. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So similarly, the whole day moderated caucuses keep happening, and this is where the real consensus emerges. Please remember that each speaker only has about 45 to 60 seconds in this moderated caucus to speak. What that means is that you have no time for formality. It means that you have to just get started, like, and you have to be on point. One strategy that I will always suggest uh, in these caucuses is what I like to call as less is more. So less is more means that rather than trying to accommodate five different points in a moderated caucus speech for 45 to 60 seconds, just focus on two or three key issues and spend more time on each of these issues rather than spending less time on more issues. Okay? So instead have just two issues and spend, and like, let's say if you were to talk about just two particular sub issues in your speech for 45 seconds, so what you do is spend the first, let's say, 5 seconds introducing your point. So you will say that, ladies and gentlemen, uh, I that the delegate of India would like to highlight two key points, point one and point two. So, so your first 5 seconds can be just introducing your point. Then for 20 seconds, focus on issue one. Then for issue one. Then for the next 20 seconds, focus on issue two. And then finally, spend the last 5 seconds in conclusion. Okay, that in conclusion, this is our call to action. Okay, straight to point, very nice, objective and pragmatic. So you don't have to cook up like long stories. You have to be very point to point on that. And maybe you can speak once or twice. It is always great in these caucuses that if somebody makes a point, you can try to appreciate them. So you can say that if you like their point, that, great points made by the delegate of Germany. It only takes literally 2 seconds to appreciate somebody's point. Or if you disagree with someone, so you say, we respectfully disagree with the points made by the delegate of Denmark, and then you come. So what that does is it creates like dialogue between you, because when you say Denmark, we disagree with you, Denmark will want to like debate with you. So this is how you invite dialogue, but again, respectfully disagreeing whenever you're disagreeing. That is the diplomacy you will have to learn through this model UN process. Okay. So this is how this happens. And I always recommend to anyone who's going to a model UN that you should always have at least 10 to 15 moderated caucus topics always broken down in your preparation for the agenda. And for each of those, write at least 2 or 3 points that you will be speaking, so that whenever you go ahead and to an MUN and somebody else raises another topic that you don't know about, that you may not have done, at least in your own research you have adequate points for that. So your preparation has to be that wide. Please do remember. So that is how moderated caucuses operate. And then the unmoderated caucuses, also known as lobbying sessions. This is where that you can leave your positions and just mingle with each other, talk to each other. This is where allies get together and try to work on their resolutions. They can do some internal strategy making. They can do some secret conversations, what we also call as backdoor or back channel negotiations. This is what happens in a moderated caucus. So that is how these two caucuses operate, moderated and unmoderated caucuses. And the speakers list keeps going on. We keep deviating from the speakers list. Like for instance, we have India. Let's say we have India, South Africa as the first speaker. We have South Africa as the second speaker in the GSL, and the third speaker is China. After that, we have a moderated caucus, and then we come back to the fourth speaker, that may be Canada, and then we go on, and similarly then we have another moderated caucus. Get it? So we always keep suspending the speakers list and always coming back to the speakers list. So this is how generally like an MUN operates. So so you can continue to speak in the caucuses as well as your own speakers list. So let us move forward to the next slide, please. Yeah, so next slide is just basically telling you the same things. You can like we will be circulating the slides so you can read through them, but this is exactly what I have just talked about. So we can move to the next one. Can we move further? Right. Okay. So the last thing about this procedure that you need to know is what we call as points and motions. Uh, these points and motions can be very important because this is the language that all MUNs, like kind of talk about. So before I go to these points in motion, let me come back to the chat and let me just respond to a few of these questions that have been posted here. Yeah, okay. So one, I think the point about the veto power getting done with it, uh, it's something that the UN has been constantly debating. So you should definitely read a little more on the reforms in the United Nations Security Council. This is a very, very big debate, and like there's a lot of content you can always find. And India and South Africa both are very big proponents for changing this UN Charter and this whole veto system. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Um, okay. Does information be a part of does information be part of the answer to global warming? Yeah, I mean, I think awareness is a very and having the right kind of scientific information is a very, very important part for global addressing global warming. So you're absolutely, I think, correct. Now let us, yeah, okay. Now let us look at the points and motions. So, whenever we move from the stages of debate that we were discussing, so for instance, after the roll call, we have to move towards agenda, or from the agenda, we have to move towards the speakers list, or from speakers list, you have to move to moderated caucus. Whenever we have to make these movements, they happen through motions. Okay. Uh, okay. So yeah, one question is, do they also discuss permaculture as solution to global warming? See, if you want to discuss permaculture in the committee, you can propose it, and then if the committee wants to discuss it, they can. So what the committee discusses is really dependent entirely on all of you as delegates and speakers. You have to decide what the committee is doing. So that is why I said that you can make a very, very big influence on the committee, no matter what country you are representing. So always remember that. Okay. Now, motions. So, as I said, motion is whenever you have to move from roll call to agenda or agenda to speakers list or speakers list to moderated caucuses or unmoderated caucuses, motions are used by delegates. Okay. So, let us go to the next slide once. Okay. Yes. So, so when we see this slide, we see these four motions on the left side. So they're very straightforward motions. Don't worry about like how they sound like. They're very simple. So let's understand. Whenever we have to uh, raise a motion, please remember as you see the language in the statement section, the second column, middle column, it says the delegate of India would like to raise the motion to set the agenda. So you have to, the phrase you're using is the delegate would like to raise the motion. This is a common phrase that all of you need to like that you can use. And then the motions are there. So the first motion when we have to adopt the agenda is simply would like the motion is to set the agenda. Set the agenda meaning that we are adopting the motion, the agenda that we are discussing. So that's a very like a procedurally, you'd say compulsory motion. It doesn't have a lot of significance. The second motion is what we call as when we have to set up the start the formal debate right after the agenda setting. So that is to establish the speakers list. Now, this speakers list, the list of speakers, is a list that is common to the entire agenda. That is why the use of the word general. So when we say that we would like to establish the general speakers list, that basically means the speakers list that we have been talking about all along in the formal debate. Okay. I hope that these two motions are clear. If some of you can give me a reaction button, like then I'll know that these two motions you understand. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks a lot. Um, so the after that, now this is the other two motions are very, very important. So just understand them. Uh, Now, we had said that we are in the speakers list and we have to go to a moderated caucus. So I had told you that we temporarily suspend the speakers list. So that is the motion. The motion is to suspend formal debate or general speakers list. So you say that the delegate of South Africa or delegate of Canada would like to raise the motion to suspend the formal debate. If you see the statement section of this, I am just reading that out for you. So you're saying that the delegate of Germany would like to raise a motion to suspend the formal debate and move into a moderated caucus. It's very simple English language that we are suspending the debate and a formal debate and we are going to a moderated caucus. Then we define the topic. As you have all given these different topics, so you will mention that topic name and then you will say that 20 minutes should be the total time. So for a total time of 20 minutes, that means that for 20 minutes we will have this discussion and every speaker will speak for this individual time. So you are saying that the delegate would like to raise a motion to suspend the formal debate and move into a moderated caucus on the topic afforestation uh, for a total period of 20 minutes and individual time of 60 seconds. So very straightforward motion, right? That you give the topic, you give the total time, and you give the individual time. That is how you do a moderated caucus motion. And the other motion is also the same motion to suspend the formal debate and move into an unmoderated caucus. Uh, and here you can't have individual time because everyone is moving and talking to each other, so there is no speaker time assigned. And there is no one particular topic. Rather, we have what we call as at the bottom of the slide. You see the purpose. Purpose meaning why do you want this caucus? So that means that for the purpose of writing a resolution or creating consensus with each other or have a back channel negotiation or get together and consult with our allies. So this is basically like what is the purpose of a motion. So these motions are very straightforward English language motions. And remember that a chairperson never decides what topic the committee has to discuss. It is these motions are raised by the delegates. So at all points in time, it is the delegates who have the control on what topic is being discussed in the MUN or in your committee. So you again, like I will repeat this statement again, you have the power as delegates to control the narrative, to set the narrative, to control the direction in which the debate goes. And that is why you need to have at least 10 to 15 different topics for caucuses because every delegate will try to propose the topic that works for them the most. Okay. I hope that is clear for you. And remember that how delegates choose the priority of these motions can be based maybe on the urgency. So, like urgency of the matter, it could be about the seriousness or the scale of the problem in the agenda. It could be also about the interest of your own committee, of your own country. There could be several ways in which you can decide which caucus topic that you want to discuss first. Sometimes it is like logically you want to first discuss causes and then move to solutions and then move to implementation aspects. I hope that you're following the chat. I'm typing some of this stuff there as well. So these are some of the ways in which you can think about how you have to prioritize these topics. So like when you saw the list or that all our friends have just mentioned about global warming, I'm sure that seeing these parameters you can already start thinking, okay, which which parameter can I use to create a order of priority that we can use in proposing these order in which the discussion can happen. Okay. So remember, once again, I'm telling you that we had started in the at the beginning today that today's conversation is how the debate is organized and how I'm sure that you are now able to understand that how in the general speakers list, while every country is making their position known and you are understanding the position of every country, uh, the caucuses are really where the consensus is being built, where solutions are being found, where the debate is happening. Okay. Okay. Very nice question. How do translations happen in terms of group discussions? See, in terms of language, every MUN has their own language in which it is happening. Sometimes it's in English language, sometimes it is in French or whichever place you are in, like the language is there. Uh, how do you convert the discussion from these caucuses to solutions is where the real game lies, like where the real issue lies. First thing I will always recommend is always take notes of the good points that are being made by different delegates. uh, you know that is very important. So whenever sometimes we are always thinking about the point that we want to communicate, we are so nervous about speaking that we are like constantly just not listening to others and just simply obsessed with I have to speak this. That is why I always say listening to a delegate is very important, and writing down the common points is extremely important, because that is the common points is what comes out in resolutions mostly, because everyone will vote on those issues. So please remember that you have to understand those topics, see what kind of language your allies are talking in, what kind of concerns the others are raising, and you can really segment like your different countries maybe in two three different places. One is people who are your natural allies, and we will be talking about it in the future sessions as well, in terms of who are your natural allies, how do you find that out. Some are your topical allies, which means that they may not be naturally friendly with your country, but on this particular issue, they may have the same way of thinking. The third is, people who are neutral and can get influenced by you simply because of your persuasion and the kind of solutions you're proposing. So and the final is people who are absolutely in the other part of this, like which are have a completely polar opposite view of your debate. But always remember, whoever is opposed to you, it's still very important to try to address their concerns, because if you are able to address their concerns, maybe you can actually turn them from a hostile country to an ally of yours. Okay. 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 So this is I'll just take the last question. In the meantime, can I request you to kindly switch the slide? Yes. Okay. So I'll just take this question before we move forward. There is a process, and this is the process of debating and discussing solutions. How do they come about carrying out the solution? So see, in an MUN, in a model UN, the focus is on creating the solutions and discussing the topics. In the real UN, a lot of discussion is also on the implementation aspects of the solution. So they will discuss where will the funds come from, which stakeholder will do what. They will discuss very concrete timelines also, that this has to be done by this time. They will discuss monitoring also, that who will monitor where the solution is being implemented, which UN agency will be working, which all member states will be contributing, what all. So all of these things are done, and then a resolution and guidelines are issued by the UN, which are then circulated to everyone, and that is how then the solutions are actually carried out. So many times, a lot of half of the UN debate is mostly on the how question, not the what question, the how question, how and when and by whom. Uh, in the UN, there are translators. So there is translations and interpreters are always available. In Zoom as well nowadays, you have transcripting and AI based translations. So many of these places now, these technological tools are always available. That is how the literal like language would be translated. And absolutely, in the UN we have 193 countries which come from very different language systems. That is why there are six formal languages of the UN, six official languages, and any documentation that is usually like any resolution which is passed, it is always translated in these six languages, and all six languages are available. Usually, the two working languages in the UN is English and French. But again, if you want translations in the UN, there are always translations in these six languages, which are available. Okay. Do delegates communicate with any authority from their country if they have a concern over their vote? Always remember that a delegate, and please, this is a very very important question. Can we please switch couple of slides? Uh, one more and one more. Yes, thank you. Okay. So please remember that a delegate in the UN has no power of their own to vote. They are always voting after consulting with their own government. They are never issuing a vote on their own accord. That is why they are called a representative. So they have to always brief. They're always briefed with their Ministry of Foreign Affairs or External Affairs in terms of how the voting should happen. Because at the end of the day, you are a delegate who is representing that country. You are not an independent identity. So please do remember that is something that you don't have an independent say. Okay. Now we will quickly discuss uh, certain very quickly, like we have only 15 minutes left. So we will be discussing a little bit about speech making. Uh, so now we will discuss what are the important aspects. So first is like starting a speech. So as I said earlier on, that you start by addressing the chairperson respectfully and clearly stating your stance. Okay. Second is when you're asking questions again, you have to ask your question to the chairperson and through the chairperson. So you are essentially communicating. Everyone's communicating through the chairpersons. Okay. Uh, this third point is very very important. Pausing for questions. If you want to have an open dialogue and if you want delegates to come and talk to you, you have to be open to questions. That means that you have to be open to, in your speeches also, you can say that, the delegate would be open to any kinds of questions from the members of the committee, or we are looking forward to having a dialogue with you. So these kind of things are very important in your language because it shows that you have come here to dialogue. You have come here to be held accountable, and you have come here with transparency, so you can be trusted and you can be engaged in a dialogue with. That is a very important part. Okay, so that is the thing, and then concluding your speech. So uh, as I had said, that end by encouraging the assembly to support or oppose the motion or the topic, and end with a call to action. So that is also very very important. Organizing your idea. Uh, so basically, what that means is that you have to structure your speech very very carefully. So it can't be haphazard. It has to move in a logical way. Like I had said when we were discussing moderated caucus, that you should give 5 seconds to introduction, then give 2 points, and then finally give a concluding statement. So organizing your idea in an MUN is very important because you have very very limited time. How much time do you have for speech? uh, Speech, you have 90 seconds, 120 seconds, 45 seconds. So very, very less time. That is the time we have, from 45 to 120 seconds generally we have for each speech. How are the chairpersons voted? The chairpersons in MUNs are not voted, they are appointed by the organizing team. And chairpersons are those people who have done a lot of MUNs and they have a lot of experience in moderating. So they, and who are very well who understand how to regulate the procedure and all of that. So the way, if you would like to be a chairperson, you have to attend more MUNs, excel at them, and then you can, applications are open. Many MUNs open applications where you can just fill out the form and then they can consider you for the chairperson. How do you pause for a question then? How you pause for a question is like just by telling that you are open for questions, and then the chairperson will help you, like, sort of conduct that entire thing. Are all votes final after they have been counted? Yeah, I mean, yes. What happens is that once all votes are counted and a decision is made in an MUN, like, you tend to, because of limited time, you don't change your vote all the time. You don't have that option so much. But maybe in the real UN, if a delegate has made a mistake in voting, and before the final resolution is announced, they realize that, of course, they do have the option to change the vote. Okay. uh yeah. And anyway, like, countries can be indecisive sometimes, but then they it's not just one. Remember that in an MUN conference you are the only one who's sitting there and debating, but in the real UN there are so many people who are sitting from a country's delegation. So I was myself once at a very high level UN meeting, and I remember that there were 11 delegates who had joined from one country, like a 11-member delegation. So there is no way that they can be indecisive, because within that also they have a strict hierarchy. And if nothing else, they can quickly WhatsApp or call their head of the state or their minister to get the final verdict. But nobody is allowed, like, but nobody will, generally, like, take the risk of just responding uh, by the vibe they are feeling in the committee. They have to consult with everyone, and only then they will go. Okay. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so we have already talked about all of this, that you start, you acknowledge other speakers, you give your statements on it, you present your country's policy, support that with adequate facts, all the relevant kind of sources that you can use, historical context, policy consideration. So all of that you should definitely be doing. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, like, we have already covered a lot of it. So proposed solutions or policies, addressing counter arguments. So if before you, some of your people have raised some reservations on your solutions, so then how do you so give certain points to address it, and then, as I said, call to action. So, express your country's willingness to collaborate and highlight potential areas where you can work with them. These are all very, very important parts. And then this last thing, what summarizing your main point. So this structure, I'm repeating it again for you all. This structure is very, very important. Okay. Um, okay. So I'll just address these couple of points. Meaning that you must be sure of your votes as a delegate. Yes, you have to be very, very sure as a delegate what you're voting. And so what would conditional agreement mean? Oh, conditional agreements. Okay, conditional agreements can happen in several negotiations, and that happens when, you know um, a country will say that, okay, we will agree to this resolution provided you do a certain concession. Like, I can give you an example. Uh, that India, for instance, India was having an agreement in 2008 with the US on nuclear policy, and India imposed certain very strict conditions to the US, saying that only if you accept our conditions will we agree. So that is what we call as a conditional agreement. One sad example I can give you is when some dictator, is trying to like really mess around with a particular country, and the UN is trying to tell them that you need to stop doing that. So the dictator will probably say that I will leave this country in peace if you don't prosecute me, and I will go in a self exile. So that is also a conditional agreement where they say that I will agree to leave if I'm not punished. If you try to punish me forcibly, then more people will be killed. So they just put a condition to agree. I hope that you understand now what conditional agreement means. Okay. Uh, so now, again, like I've already discussed all these issues for moderated caucus. So let's move forward. Yeah, Sia, like you're right. Like Israel, even Russia, Ukraine, I mean, you see a lot of negotiations where conditional agreements are being discussed. So yes, you're absolutely correct. Let's go to the next slide, please. Common phrases. Okay. So this is something that is very interesting that you can see that when you are starting to speak, so you're saying Mr. or Madam Chairperson, Chairman, um, and that is how you can like communicate a very clear policy at the beginning that that Albania would like to speak in favor or against the motion or a topic because. So that is one way of phrasing. The other is when asking a question. Um, so there's something called as a point of information. So then the delegate is saying that the delegate rises. So that is what I was trying to tell you that at each point you're referring to yourself as a delegate. Okay. I just want you to refer to the final one here on the screen. It says, when concluding a speech, Ecuador urges the assembly to vote for or against the motion. So this is a important phrase. Uh, urges. Urges is a very commonly used word in MUN language. Urges, as you all might understand, means requests, but something more than requests, a sincere kind of a request. So that is another common phrase. So these phrases you should always, when you start doing MUNs, you will get used to thinking in those terms of these phrases as well. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Yes, these are some of the words like vocabulary, common phrases that you will come across when people are speaking. So, for instance, when you are trying to add more ideas, so you're saying this and again. I'd like to emphasize that. Furthermore, furthermore, the delegate would like to make these points. In addition to what we have already stated, this. Moreover, so these are words that we have mentioned here to help you not sound repetitive, and you can just use these as you'd like. So to prove something, like you're using evidently, inevitably, for this reason. When you're comparing and contrasting the ideas, you're saying all these things. I hope that you're able to, and you can go through these as well. These you can use in academic language, in debate, in dialogue, in MUN. They're all very helpful phrases. Okay. Um, let's move forward, please. And the slides will be available, so don't worry about it. Continuing again to give an example, we are saying for instance, or in this case, or in particular, or notably. So the idea is that your language becomes more and more precise, and you are using these phrases. It will just make your point sound more formal. If you will see, like sometimes lawyers are saying the same thing, but they just sound different because they're using certain phrases. So, so that is like what they're trying to do. So this is what we are also trying to do. Okay. So let's conclude our presentation part for now. I will just take a couple of minutes just to summarize certain things that we have done today. We can stop sharing if we want to. Okay, so today our idea was basically to understand these two things: speakers list, what we say in speakers list, how largely a position is communicated on speakers lists, and then second part is the moderated caucuses. So these caucuses and speakers list is how the debate happens in an MUN. This is how we start from setting the agenda, that means adopting the topic of discussion, to finally analyzing everything and then coming to certain conclusions. So remember, the takeaways are that with every caucus, you are discussing some individual topics and then subtopics, and then you're trying to create consensus on them and maybe deriving one or two solutions. Uh, in the next class, in the next session, when we meet together, we will be discussing a lot of how to research how these solutions that we have found out are written in formal language, how the other section, like after the deliberation, how the second half of an MUN operates. Okay. Do we pay for this module? No, no, nobody has to pay for any module. Um, yeah. Um, okay, so yeah. Okay. And my what you can do, I think, sort of as a assignment besides what is already there in the course, is try to look into the UN website, try to find um, the different agendas at the UN and try to break them down into different caucus topics. So this is something that you can understand, and then, as I had written in the chat, uh, try to break them down in terms of order of priority, order of urgency, order of interest. Try to like have all of these breakdowns, and then try to logically think, how can a debate on climate change move? How can a debate on green technology move? How can a debate on all of these different places move? Uh, the more you will break down these agendas, the more you will become natural at analyzing any issue whatsoever. Because there is so much information. Uh, there's so much information in an MUN that you are always processing, that sometimes we really get lost in the central, like where the central ideas, central solutions lie. This is the final like takeaway for us, that to organize the debate is very, very important. Okay. To organize the conversation between these 60, 70, sometimes 100 delegates, and to come out with 15 solutions, 10 solutions, it just takes this kind of a method. Okay. So I will just stop talking here, and thank you once again, all of you. You are such amazing people. Um, and I love the conversation in the chat and all your responses. So once again, like, thank you so much, everyone. I'll just hand over to David quickly. David, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Keshav. That was another very interesting session. I see everyone is really enjoying it. I see the chat has been very, very active. So I hope you guys have joined it. Look, guys, it's 100% free. You can access the course now. We've just posted it in the chat as well. You just log in with your My Life details. And if you complete the course, it will be added on to your not statement of results, but your academic record as a co-curricular activity. So make sure you do all the activities that's on this course site as well. If Richard's available, he can quickly show you the course site so you guys can see how to access it, because I do see a lot of people are asking about that. So if Richard, if you're available, you can quickly just show them, and then I'm going to hand over then after that to Dr. Chetty to close up the session for today.
Okay, thank you, David. I'll just quickly share my screen. So students, it's very easy. All you need to do is adovh.unisa.ac.za. And then from there, we still have the... So if you scroll down, we've currently still have the enroll now for the Model UN MOOC. Now, so this will still up while we have the workshops running each week. So just remember, when you access this site, you need to log in with your My Life email address. Or if you are an external user, you can always create an account as well that you can access the course. Now, just to highlight as well, for those that perhaps missed last week's recordings, they are available at the bottom where we've got the web recordings. So even this week's one will be added to here. If you missed it, you can easily go rewatch them as well. So I saw some questions about, do you have to pay for this course? So this is an open course. Now, for students of the University of South Africa, what will happen is you need to participate in the activities. I see there's quite a lot of participation as well. We will also have a post-assessment for you to complete, and it will just determine, whether you've grasped the concepts that was discussed within this course, and that will be taken together with your activity completion to determine if you have successfully completed the course. But to access the course, please just visit the welcome page after the homepage of ADOVH. Click on the UN Model MOOC, and this will take you in. The first time it will just ask you to enroll. And I must say thank you to all of you that's already participated. All of the others, please go and add your voice, comment to other people's chats as well, so that we can form a real collaborative workspace for all of us to work through this module. Thanks, David.
All right, thanks, Richard. So, guys, just remember we have shared the recording and the links in the chat, so you can go for it as well. To wrap up the session, I'm going to ask Dr. Chetty to close for us, and then we'll see you again, same time, same place next week. So, over to you, Dr. Chetty.
Thank you so much, David. And once again, a note of appreciation to Keshav for another exciting session. And I think in this session, you really brought the discussion zone from the context of a lot of the chats that I am following. It's clear that you've been able to bring a lot of the context home to those students in the South African context. And I think this is an important part for us to really, and I think somebody posted it on the chat as well, to demystify the UN processes and understand it from a grassroots level and what really is transpiring in these spaces. So I think you also made it very practical, and I like that because that actually helps many of our students to grasp it much, much more easier. So thank you, Keshav, once again for an exciting session. I know we are looking forward to next week's session as well, and how you take this to the next level. I did see on the chat as well, somebody said that they did share the course with a few other people and invited them to attend. You are more than welcome to do that. And as the colleagues have mentioned, that this is a free course as part of our outreach, and we are really focusing on developing those core competencies for public engagement, and also more strategically narrowing down on the climate change issues that we are confronting as well. So colleagues, please go ahead and engage with the content, engage with the activities, and also, as please do invite other colleagues as well that you might have to join the session. I think there's valuable knowledge in this for everyone. So we wish you all the best. And once again, Keshav, thank you. David, thank you. And Richard as well. We wish you all the best, colleagues that are joining us online, all our students. And we will see each one of you same time next week. So please take care and have a pleasant night. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.